The fear of death might well be haunting our every waking moment and be endlessly reinforcing the existential dread and inevitable meaninglessness of existence in the real world, but in the history of comic books, it's become something of a joke. Ever since Superman returned from the dead in 1993, which actually turned out to be one giant super sleep, death has become a huge cliche in the comics medium. Basically, aside from Uncle Ben, nobody in comics stays dead. But on the flip side, this frees up the Grim Reaper to come hunting for many, many comic book heroes and villains without the potential series-ending ramifications it would have were death as permanent as in real life. As such, it's truly rare for a character to have never had a good old kick of the proverbial bucket, yet that's not to say that they don't exist. So with that in mind, I'm Will for What Culture, and here are 10 superheroes who have never been killed. Number 10, Luke Cage. Considering his involvement with a who's who of Marvel's greatest teams of heroes, the Avengers, the Defenders, the Thunderbolts, Luke Cage has been in the crosshairs of Lady Death on more occasions than most. Still, the indestructible Power Man has yet to be killed off at any point since debuting back in 1972. With unbreakable skin, you'd imagine it would take quite the special something to take down Cage, and that special something has yet to rear its head in the main comic book canon. Unfortunately for Luke, the downside of his indestructibility is that he's had to see plenty of his friends and partners die over the decades. Then again, as already mentioned, death is not a permanent arrangement in comics, meaning that those deceased buddies have usually returned to the land of the living before even getting the chance to have a funeral. The closest we've really got to a Luke Cage death was in the non-canon Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, in which he's the last Avenger standing as Wade Wilson looks to wipe out every Marvel hero. The eventual cause of his death? Wade Wilson spikes Cage's coffee with a shrunken down bomb. Number 9, Beast. Where Luke Cage has had to see several of his bestest buddies killed off over the years, that's nothing compared to poor Hank McCoy. As part of the famed X-Men, McCoy has seen so many friends killed off, yet so far, Beast is the one X-Man always left standing. Professor X, Jean Grey, Cyclops, and even Wolverine are just some of the mutants who have experienced death, but Beast has proven to be the exception to the X-Men's habit of their members dying with alarming regularity. For Hank, there's no particular secret to staying alive. Sure, he's more often than not the smartest person in any room he finds himself in, but he doesn't have any particular magical abilities or powers that keep him from death's door. Some folks aren't super overpowered, they're just lucky enough not to have been killed. After all, being lucky is an excellent defense against death. Number 8, Black Canary. While the CW has run through all kinds of different canaries since introducing the concept of the shared Arrowverse realm with Arrow back in 2012, the comic book Black Canary has fared slightly better than her TV counterparts. But that's not to say that Canary has had things easy in the comics, having had to face all kinds of battles and personal demons over the years, not least having to kill her husband Oliver Queen on their wedding night. And things famously got extremely bad for Dinah during Mike Gel's seminal run on the Green Arrow title back in the late 1980s. In fact, at one point we saw Canary kidnapped, tortured, sexually abused, and prepared for death by a couple of complete creeps in some of the most shocking comic book panels of the decade, during Mike Grell's infamous Longbow Hunters arc. Despite her plentiful trials and tribulations, however, readers have yet to see Black Canary killed off. Number 7, Tim Drake. For a second there, back in 2016, it looked as if DC Comics may, just may, kill off Tim Drake. While the Rebirth arc saw Tim Drake believed to be dead, readers already had the inside scoop and knew that this fan-favourite character was alive and well. Well, maybe not well, but at least he was alive and being held captive by Mr. Oz. Given how Tim's 1989 debut saw him eventually take over the Robin mantle from the deceased Jason Todd, it would have been maybe a tad harsh on the Caped Crusader to have another one of his sidekicks killed off over the ensuing few years. But to Tim's credit, here we are in 2019 with the current Red Robin yet to kick the bucket at any point throughout his history. Number 6, Shazam. In a landscape and medium that can often become formulaic formulaic, Shazam has always managed to be quite the unique superhero. Even though he is one of the most powerful heroes in the pantheon of DC Comics and has essentially the same abilities as Superman plus magic, what makes Shazam so special is the fact that his alter ego Billy Batson is your average teenage boy. And the most recent Shazam movie managed to hit so many of the right beats that make Billy and his all-powerful heroic side such a delight to watch. And with those immense powers and abilities, we've yet to see anybody actually kill Shazam in the main canon of DC Comics. Of course, for those who've checked out the animated Justice League The Flashpoint Paradox, you'll have seen Billy brutally murdered by Wonder Woman, or alternatively murdered by Superman in Injustice Gods Among Us. But hey, we're all about that standard canon here, so Billy's still going strong on life number 1. Number 5. Jay Garrick. The history of the Flash is a convoluted and confusing one. First up, there's several different people to have taken on the moniker of the Flash. Then there's the fact that there are so many different timelines and alternate futures in play, meaning that Flash canon is a tough thing to make sense of. Now, while many famously remember Barry Allen sacrificing himself to save reality itself, a death that would actually last for 24 years, the history of Jay Garrick is a little less well known. Garrick was the original Flash and one of the main heroes of the golden age of comics. Unlike Barry though, Jay has yet to be killed off at any point in a history that goes all the way back to 1940. Rather than getting the same treatment as Barry Allen, instead Jay Garrick was given a far more welcoming exit as he simply stopped being included in the stories of the day once the golden age drew to a close. In subsequent decades, Garrick has reappeared at certain times, yet each and every time he's managed to get away unscathed to fight another day. Number 4. Barbara Gordon. One of the most shocking moments in comic book history saw the Joker shoot Barbara Gordon at point blank range in Alan Moore's The Killing Joke. The attack saw a bullet go through Barbara's spinal cord, resulting in her becoming a paraplegic. Leaving the cape and cowl up behind her, Barbara used her intelligence and computer skills to become a different hero, Oracle. So it was often the case that Oracle would be the one pulling the strings behind any plans the Bat family were putting together. However, in 2011, the controversial decision was made to have Barbara regain her mobility and become Batgirl once more. A shame too, seeing as she'd become such a badass new character in her own right. But still, in a wheelchair or out of it, she's never actually died. Number 3. Daredevil. Considering the constant turmoil and pain Matt Murdock has had to face on a regular basis, it's actually a little surprising to remember that the Guardian Devil has yet to experience death in the main 616 Marvel world. Poor Daredevil, between constantly juggling with a whole host of bad luck and Catholic guilt, Matt has no doubt had it tough, and that's before you even mention the fact that an accident rendered him blind from a young age. Despite his numerous battles against villains such as Kingpin, Bullseye, Typhoid Mary, the Owl, and even tangling with Frank Castle on several occasions, the man without fear has somehow managed to always escape with his life intact during his 55-year comic book history. Number 2. Sue Storm. Marvel's first family are a mess at the best of times, yet it's Sue Storm who is usually the most level-headed of the Fantastic Four. While Reed tinkers with science, Johnny chases the ladies, and Ben spends his days wishing he was human again, Sue is the glue that holds the Fantastic Four together. Luckily for Reed, Johnny and Ben then, not to mention young Franklin, Invisible Woman has yet to be killed off at any point in her Marvel Comics run. Whether it's as a superhero, a wife, a sister, a mother, or simply as a friend, Sue Storm has always proven herself to be one of the true rocks and cornerstones of the Marvel world, and death has never stopped her from that. Number 1. Falcon. Sam Wilson is a hugely important comic book character for a number of reasons. To give some historical context, Wilson was the first African American superhero to not have black be a part of his superhero name. Seriously. Sam was and is the Falcon, and he's even gone to take on the mantle of Captain America at several points throughout the character's history. Like many other comic book characters, Wilson is also somebody who has suffered his fair share of loss, notably experiencing the death of his father and his young nephew. But Sam Wilson himself, he's managed the admirable task of consistently staying alive during his plentiful adventures. Right now, Sam Wilson is also riding a new wave of popularity thanks to the character's appearances in the MCU, meaning the chances of him being killed off anytime soon are hopefully minimal. And there you have it folks, 10 superheroes who have never been killed. Feel free to drop this video a like if you enjoyed it, and hang out with me on Twitter at @USlyDogU. I'm Will for What Culture, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.